Hey everyone, and welcome to the Study Guide Explainer. If you're a civics student looking to really nail down the foundations of the Kenyan electoral process, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to skip the dry textbook reading. Instead, we're looking at elections like a high-stakes, incredibly important sport. Because really, if you want to understand how power is won, kept, or lost, you've got to know how the game is played. So grab your notebooks and let's dive right in. Here's our game plan for today's review. First, we'll look at the rulebook. Second, who gets to vote? Third, who can run? Fourth, we'll cover campaign rules and voting. And finally, number 5, why elections actually matter.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the rulebook, governing elections in Kenya.
So look, elections, they aren't just random events. You can't just wake up on a Tuesday and decide, hey, let's hold a national election today. The whole game is held up by two massive pillars, the 2010 Constitution of Kenya and the Elections Act. Think of these documents as the ultimate referee's manual. They literally dictate every single boundary line on the field. And the ultimate goal of all these rules, it's to make sure the entire process is free, fair, and transparent. Because honestly, if the game isn't fair, the final score doesn't mean a thing.
Moving right along to Section 2, who gets to vote? Let's meet the players on the field.
You know, a rule book is pretty useless if you don't have players, right? But you don't just automatically walk onto the pitch here. To get on the roster, you have to clear exactly 4 specific hurdles. First up, you must be a Kenyan citizen. Second, you've got to be 18 years old or older, that's the legal age of majority. Third, you have to hold a valid national ID or a passport. And fourth, you must actually be registered in the voters register by the IEBC, which is the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Basically, think of the IEBC as the head referee who physically checks the team roster before the game starts. If your name isn't on their list, you aren't playing. Okay, let's do a quick pop quiz to see if you're following. Imagine you're 19, you're a Kenyan citizen, and you are officially registered with the IEBC. But on election day, you accidentally leave your ID at home. Can you still vote? Take a second, think about the referee's rules we just covered. The answer is a hard no. Absolutely not. No valid ID or passport equals no vote, period. It totally doesn't matter if the poll worker is your neighbor and knows you, or if you can prove your age some other way. The rulebook is incredibly strict. Without that required document physically in your hand, the referee will simply not let you onto the field.
Which brings us to Section 3, who can run? Let's talk about qualifying for the roster.
Okay, so we know about the regular players, the voters, but what about the candidates? These are the folks stepping up, trying to be the team captains, and man, they face a completely different set of intense requirements. And these requirements actually scale up depending on the job. Whether you're running for president, governor, or member of parliament, you can't just raise your hand and claim the spot. Candidates have to meet educational hurdles, like holding a recognized university degree for certain offices. They face moral requirements, meaning they have to pass rigorous integrity checks under the Constitution. And then there are financial requirements to make sure they're cleared of any major corruption or malpractice. Basically, the bigger the captain's role, the deeper the background check by the referee.
All right, Section 4, campaign rules and voting. Let's get into the actual gameplay and, of course, the fouls.
Just like any major sport, the actual gameplay, meaning the campaigning and the voting itself, comes with an incredibly strict code of conduct. During a campaign, candidates are quite literally fighting for your vote, but they have to fight fair. The 2 biggest red cards that will get you penalized: hate speech and violence. If candidates use language that stirs up hatred between communities, or if they use violence to intimidate their opponents, they are committing a massive, massive foul. The rulebook strictly demands that campaigns be a battle of ideas, definitely not a physical brawl. Now, on game day itself, there's one definition you absolutely need to get down in your notes: the secret ballot. This is the right of every single voter to cast their vote in total privacy to prevent any kind of intimidation. No one gets to look over your shoulder, no one gets to know who you picked. You go into that voting booth alone, and you make your choice. It's literally the ultimate protection for the player on the field. But hey, what happens if the buzzer sounds and someone claims the other team cheated? What if there's an electoral dispute? Well, you don't take it to the streets. The rulebook already has a system for that. Disputes are resolved strictly through the courts or designated legal bodies. Think of the court system as the final video review booth. They look at all the evidence, they consult the Constitution and the Elections Act, and they make the final legally binding call. Finally, Section 5, why elections matter. Let's talk about the ultimate trophy. So, we've gone through all these strict rules, the referees, the secret ballots, but why do we even do this?
Why go through this massive, highly regulated process in the first place? Well, elections matter for three huge reasons. First, they provide a peaceful way to transition power. Without them, power just changes hands through force or total chaos. Elections make sure the game ends with a handshake. Second, they allow citizens to hold leaders accountable. If a team captain was terrible this season, you just vote them out the next. And third, elections give the government the mandate to lead.
And that word right there, mandate, is absolutely crucial. Definitely highlight this in your study guide. A mandate is the legal right to lead. It is the ultimate trophy of this whole process. A government can't just command you to follow its laws unless it has won that mandate directly from the citizens, from you, the players, through a free, fair, and transparent election. The mandate is their proof that they played by the rules and won fair and square.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on. If elections give leaders the mandate to lead, how are you going to use your qualifications, your voice, and eventually your vote to hold them accountable? The rulebook is written, the field is set, and pretty soon you're going to be the players out there. So how will you play the game? Thanks so much for joining me for this Civic Study Guides Explainer, and I will see you all next time.